Welcome to today's video. I hope you're doing very, very well. In today's video, we are going to be talking about one of the most important things in trading, and that is psychology. This is all about the mind. This has nothing to do with the charts. We're not going to be going through any crazy technical analysis or breaking down any amazing setups. No, this is just going to be a talk between you and I where I get to know you a bit better and I give you some advice and some tips that saved me, that helped me so much with my psychology and trading, right? I always say, no one talks about psychology. No one really talks about how important it is. People do talk about it. But one thing that people don't do enough is they don't act, right? They don't act. They don't take the decision. They don't make the choice to act upon it. They recognize that, yeah, my psychology is bad, but they're so hungry to get money, to see the outcome, to, see good results, to prove their parents wrong and be like, look, this is how much I made. You told me I couldn't do this. That you actually just accept that you lose control and you fall into a trap where, you make mistakes again and again and again for multiple years on end. And that's what happened with me. And that's why I can relate to you guys so heavily if you're in that same position. You're in that position where psychology is sort of just, it's like a burden. It's like a bag of rocks that you have to hold over your shoulder because, some days you take a win and you're on top of the world. You feel like the best trader, you're happy. And another day you take a loss and now your whole world's crumbling, right? You're feeling all of that, all of those rocks on your back start to get heavier and heavier and heavier. And you go on tilt. You start clicking buttons, you start taking trades, you start blowing accounts, you start losing money. This is all to do with psychology. And psychology is one of those things that you're not going to understand immediately. You're not just going to start trading, you're not going to look at your first trade, take your first trade and just be like, well, actually, I didn't feel any way about this. I had no psychological problems. That was super easy. That was perfectly fine. Okay, maybe you might say that for the first trade. But one thing about trading is you will always have to make the mistakes in order to learn from them. As someone who teaches, as someone who's a mentor, that's something that I just straight up understand. Like, no matter how many times you tell somebody not to do something, especially in trading, they're not going to learn and understand the consequences of their mistakes until they actually make those mistakes and they suffer from it. That's just the truth. That's just the truth. You have to make the mistakes to learn from them. So what is my advice? My advice is make the mistakes, but don't make the mistake of just being like, okay, cool, I've made the mistake. It is what it is. And then you just keep doing it again and again and again. No, my advice is cool. I've made a mistake. Let's act upon it. What can I do now to ensure that I don't make that mistake again? I don't keep making silly errors and I can just become I can become profitable as soon and as quick as possible, right? Trading isn't a game about let's make money right now. Let's make money as quick as possible, But ideally, you don't want to be stuck in a phase where you're struggling every single day and making mistakes every single day for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. No, you don't, right? You want to make those mistakes, get them out your system, learn as quick as possible, move on and become profitable. So that's what this video is about. I'm going to give you some tips. I'm going to give you some advice with your psychology, how to overcome some of those mistakes and how to actually learn from them. And then just, some tricks that helped me. I had bad psychology for over 2 years, nearly three. 3 years. If you ask anyone, I was trading in school and I was stressed. I was stressed. I was all the time just like, oh my God, I take some amazing win and then I blow it all because I had no control. I had bad psychology. I couldn't control my actions. I let the market control my actions for me. And that's where everything goes wrong. So, anyways, let's get right into it. This video is going to change your life. I want to ask you a question. How many times as a trader have you made a mistake or have you made an error? Maybe you revenge traded, maybe you over risked, blah, blah, blah. How many times have you made a mistake and then made that exact same mistake again? And I'm not even talking about, a year after or 2 years after. I'm talking like maybe a week, a few days after, maybe even the next day, maybe even a few minutes later. How many times have you done that? Has that happened to you? Well, I'm going to tell you, if it has, don't be ashamed because it happened to me over a million times. I'm not even going to lie. A million times where I was like, I've learned my lesson. I'm never going to do that again. And guess what? You just do it again. You just do it again because you can't resist. You can't fight that temptation. You can't fight that temptation. Now, where does that all stem from? Where does this whole thing all stem from? And this is what I need you to think. Why are you making these mistakes? What is the real meaning behind you making these mistakes? Maybe it's you're desperate to prove your parents wrong. Maybe they don't accept your trading. Maybe they want you to get a normal job, and you're just so hungry to get that payout, get those 5-figure months right now, and you want to be like, Mom, look what I did. That's causing you to just make all these mistakes because you're putting that pressure on yourself. Maybe that's not the situation. Maybe it's a case of, you have to get your first job in a few months, and there's pressure on you because you have to pay the bills. So what are you thinking? Well, you're thinking, I have to get a payout now. I can't get a payout in a week, in a month, in 2 months, in 4 months. I need that payout now. Otherwise, I can't pay rent. Otherwise, I have to get that job. Otherwise, I have to, do you understand? So my point is right now, essentially, have a think about what's causing you to make those mistakes in the first place. I realized mine. And it was simply that I got sick of not winning, that I started forcing it because I wanted to prove everyone that my efforts were for a reason. People would see that I was trying, that I loved trading. But I never was like, look, I made 10K today. Look, I made 2K. No, it was never that. I was all over the place. And I started getting annoyed. I started kind of feeling, well, what do these people think of me? They see how much I do this, and I've not got a single result to show for it. That's an issue, right? And this was the me of a few years ago. So what did I do? I wrote down my issues, and I need you to do this right now. Write down your issues, identify the core, right? The purpose as to why you're making these mistakes. And this is what's going to flip that switch in your mind from becoming that unprofitable, loser, to now this profitable, disciplined, experienced trader. Now, once you write out this problem, I'm going to almost 100% assume that the reason why you're making these mistakes is because you're fixated on the outcome over the process. Now, what do I mean by the process and what do I mean by the outcome? Well, by the process, I'm referring to the skill of trading. I'm talking about the ability to develop and understand and practice and improve and refine as a trader, right? That is the process. That's the process of trading. You have to learn and master the skill. Now, there's the outcome. The outcome isn't the process. The outcome is just the results. What you get as a byproduct of your efforts of learning the skill. I'm talking about the payouts. I'm talking about the nice car. I'm talking about the nice watch. I'm talking about the nice house. I'm talking about the 10K that you're going to give to your mom and be like, look, mom, I made it. That's what I'm talking about. That's the outcome. And I'm fairly certain that the main reason as to why you're having these psychological, incidents where you're just making mistakes over and over again, it's because you're focused on the outcome, right? You're focused on the outcome rather than the process, and that's the biggest mistake that you can make as a trader. As soon as you start thinking about the money, as soon as you start thinking about the results that you need to get now, the more pressure you put on yourself to get those results, and the more you just crumble, and the more you just lose control, because then the market starts dictating your emotions, and then you lose everything. I'm telling you from experience, and I'm pretty sure you're well aware of this as well. You lose everything. So the question here is, Seb, how do I get out of that state? How do I master my mind? How do I control myself to not make those mistakes? I know what mistakes I'm making. I know that they're stopping me from becoming profitable. But how do I stop them? I can't. I can't stop them. It's as simple as this. I want you to do one thing right now, right? Firstly, I want you to write down a set of rules. That's very, very simple. If you don't have a rules checklist, then you're doing everything wrong. So right now, if you haven't got one, go write one. This is a rules checklist, right? This is going to be like, okay, cool. Before I take a trade, I need this to happen. Yeah. That is a rules checklist. Another rules checklist is, to say, I'm not allowed to enter a trade past 4 p.m., right? Or I'm allowed to take 2 trades per day max. Cool. That's another rule. You need to implement these. So right now, create a checklist of your rules. Secondly, if you already have a checklist, then amazing. You need to go about using it correctly, because a checklist means nothing if you're not using it properly. Now, how are you going to use this properly? Well, before you ever enter in a trade, I need you to ask yourself one question. And it's a very simple question. There's not that much going into this, right? You need to ask yourself, if this trade loses, will I be mad at myself? Will you get mad? Will you get annoyed that the trade lost? And it's as simple as this, right? Let's say you've asked yourself that question, you're about to take a setup, and you go, "Well, you know what? I am going to be mad. This is one of those trades where I'll look back at and be like, why the hell did I take that? This isn't following my strategy. This is my third trade of the day. I'm over risking, in fact, because I just want to get that. I want to pass this funded account right now. This is actually a terrible trade. What do you do in that case if you recognize that right before you're about to enter? You don't take the trade. It's as simple as that. It's in your rules. It's in your rules checklist. You don't take the trade, right? You do not click the button. If it goes to you'll take profit in 10 seconds, who cares? Who cares? Because you need to start thinking about probabilities. Out of 10 trades, two of them would have won, taking that exact similar style of setup. Eight of them would have lost. That was just one out of the two, out of the 10 that would have won. Do you understand? The other eight would have lost. The other eight would have lost. There's an overwhelming chance that this trade would have lost. So who cares if it won? Like, who actually cares? You understand what I'm trying to say? It's about developing good habits. So you didn't take that trade. Amazing. You saved yourself there. Who cares if it won, if it lost? It doesn't matter. You made the right choice. Now, let's say you're about to take the trade and you go, okay, will I be mad? You know what? No, I'm not gonna be mad. This is a good setup. This follows my rules. This is my first trade of the day. I'm risk managing accordingly. Every single one of my entry confluences are ticked. Well, then guess what? You take the trade. You enter the setup. You literally click the button, the buy or the sell button. Now, what's going to happen? Okay, cool. Well, the trade wins. Amazing. You've made money. But let's say the trade loses. What happens in this case? If the trade loses, you probably are going to be like, I'm talking about the old version of yourself. The old version of you is going to be like, no, no way, I lost. Time to start finding another trade. I need to make my money back. You don't say this out loud, but you're thinking it subconsciously, right? So you go back to the charts, you start clicking buttons, you start revenge trading, you start over risking, you start FOMOing, you start blah, 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 blah. That is a spiral of what would have happened if you didn't ask yourself this question. But now that you've asked yourself the question and you've already accepted that you're not going to be mad if it loses, well, guess what? The beauty of it is you've already accepted the loss before you've even taken it. You've already accepted that this loss is something that you'd be comfortable with, something that you would understand if it was to happen, because you know that this follows your high win rate model. You know that out of 10 trades, you're going to win eight and you're going to lose two if you take trades like this. This is just one of the two that you lost. You're going to win eight. So who cares? Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Right? And the fact that you've already accepted the loss before taking it means that once you take that loss, you're not going to start clicking buttons and trying to force your way to make more money and, trying to get the market to give you every single penny. You're not going to do that. You're going to say, well, that's fine. This was a good trade. On to the next. And that's the peace and that's the calm that you need in your life. That's the peace that you need in your mind when going into trading. That's how you're going to master psychology. And it all stems from a simple question. If this trade loses, will I be mad? How will I feel? Right? Will I get annoyed at myself or will I be okay with it? And that's what's going to change your entire course of your trading. I can almost guarantee you, right? You need to put in the work. This isn't just to say, okay, cool, ask yourself that question, you're now going to be profitable. No, you need to be putting in the work alongside it. You need to be locked in. You need to be grinding. You need to be on the charts, wanting to not take a setup, but you're happy to take a setup if your model presents itself. That's what you need to be there for. You need to show up. But you also need to remember this about psychology, right? Every person's psychology is different. The best thing that you can do is control your own. And how do you control your own? It's by understanding yourself. How do you understand yourself? It's by actually taking a step back and thinking, why am I making these mistakes? Why do I have bad psychology in the first place? Okay, cool. Now that you understand why you have that bad psychology, it's about taking action. It's about asking yourself this question that I've told you, right? This is what it's all about. This is what changed my life, and it's what can change yours. Hopefully you've been listening to this and it's not just someone rambling, and it's actually someone who's helping you out and telling you things that they really really relate to. Like, trust me guys, I suffered with psychology. I suffered. Even sometimes to this day I still suffer, because psychology is just one of those things that no matter what stage you're at in your trading, you're always going to get a taste of. Always going to get a taste of. But it's all about trying to master it step by step. And if you're not taking those steps in that right direction to mastering it, you're always going to be unprofitable. You're always going to lose more money. You're always going to blow more evaluations, and you're always going to feel like a disappointment, right? Nothing changes if nothing changes. If you don't change the way that your mind views the market, you don't change the way that your mind views trading, Nothing's going to change. You're going to keep losing money. You're going to keep being broke. You're going to keep praying for that breakthrough, which is just not going to come. It's just not going to come, is it? It might come. You might pass your first challenge, but you're not going to get a payout because you're too emotionally attached to the markets. You've got no control. You've got no discipline, right? And I know it's harsh, but it's the reality of it. You need to take this video very, very seriously because this is about your psychology. This is about not just your psychology. This is about your life. This is about your trading career. So what I need you to do right now is do everything that I've told you to do, right? Do everything that I've told you to do. This is going to fix your psychology. You're going to master it. You're going to become a goat at trading once you got this locked in. So yeah, I hope this video helped you out. If you have any questions for me, or if you feel a type of way about this video, let me know in the comment section below. If you could just drop a comment, I'd really appreciate that. Give this video a like, subscribe if you're not yet subscribed. I'm going to be dropping way more gems for you guys, right? Not just on psychology, on actual chart analysis, like trade breakdowns. I'm going to teach you guys stuff. So follow along with this page. I'm going to be there to help you guys out. So subscribe, like, comment, share to your friends that need help with their psychology. And yeah, let me know if this video helped you out. Well, I wish you the best. I wish you the best with your psychology and trading, and I will catch you in the next video. So peace.